While Atari keeps trying to sell you new systems, like the 5200, with Colecovision you only need one system, because Colecovision expands to give you a Super Action controller set with Super Action Baseball, a driving module with turbo, an expansion module to play all Atari 2600 games, and only Colecovision plugs into the Atom module to become the complete Atom computer system. So if you don't want to keep buying new systems, there's only one system to buy, Colecovision. Sorry, Atari.
Hello everyone, it's Kevin, and today we are looking at 10 Colecovision games that still hold up today. Now recently, I made a video about the Atari 2600, and honestly, I came away liking that console more than I expected. A lot of those games were simple. It definitely wasn't what I was accustomed to, but simple doesn't automatically mean bad. Games like Yar's Revenge, River Raid, and Kaboom were easy to pick up and are still fun today. And it's because the gameplay was strong enough to carry them. So after that video, a lot of people told me that I needed to try the Colecovision, and as an NES kid, I didn't really know much about it. Growing up, I heard about Atari, I heard about Nintendo obviously, and then there was Sega. Looking back at it, the Colecovision was kind of that weird console that I still have never even seen before. I've never even met a person who had one. So today, I'm finding out what I missed. And after playing these games, I think I understand why people still talk about this console. But before we get into the games, let's quickly talk about the hardware. The Colecovision launched in 1982, and the easiest way I can describe it is this. The Atari 2600 felt like home gaming trying to become a thing. The Colecovision feels like home gaming realizing its potential. And the difference is immediately noticeable. The graphics are better, the sound is better, and most importantly, the games feel much closer to the arcade games that they were trying to imitate. Now, don't get me wrong, this thing still feels old. For some reason the controller looks like someone glued a telephone to a joystick. But, oh well, I ignored that and I started focusing on the games. And that's where the console really surprised me. But if this is so much better than the 2600, how could the 2600 beat it? Especially when it could actually play 2600 games, which is wild as hell. Imagine Microsoft saying that now you could play Mario Kart on the Xbox. This would never happen today. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's look at this historically. The 2600 launched back in 1977 with only 128 bytes of RAM. Not kilobytes, bytes. The Colecovision arrived 5 years later in 1982 with a much more powerful processor. It also had significantly more memory, better sound, and graphics that were much closer to what you'd see in the arcade. Honestly, after playing both consoles back to back, it's not even a fair fight. The Colecovision feels like a glimpse of where gaming was heading, while the 2600 was looking like it was about to be left in the dust. As far as how the 2600 won, it seems that timing had a lot to do with it. The 2600 had a 5-year head start, of course, and it built a huge player base before the Colecovision even showed up. It was also cheaper, had a massive library of games, and by the early 80s, Atari had become almost synonymous with video games. Then there was the video game crash of 1983. The entire industry took a massive hit, and while the Colecovision didn't survive it, the Atari somehow kept hanging around for years afterwards. In a lot of ways, the Colecovision was the better machine, but the Atari was simply in the right place at the right time. I do wonder how it would have played out if they came out at the same time. Enough of this though. There are YouTubers out there that are more in depth if you want to dig deeper. It is time to power on and play some games. Alright, we're gonna start with Carnival. What's interesting about this one right off the bat is that Sega made this. I do wonder if this is their first game. This one is basically a shooting gallery game. That's the entire idea behind it. I'm sure this was novel for the time. It's quite addictive, but there's not much to it. What is good though is that it has music and it has a 2-player mode. The bonus level is kind of odd though. I just don't understand it. A lot of modern games try to give you 100 mechanics at once, but Carnival just says here are some targets, try not to miss them. It doesn't do anything revolutionary. I don't think they tried to anyway. It's just an alright game, a decent distraction, let's say. But sometimes that's all you need, especially back then. Turbo was a game that I expected to feel ancient just by looking at it. But this one was made by Sega again, and I believe that it had a steering wheel controller designed for it. In this game, I found myself weaving through traffic and trying not to crash for way longer than I planned to. It's pretty cool until you get to the point where you can die in one hit, which, to be fair, is realistic, I guess. Is it a primitive game? Yeah, absolutely. But for a racing game from 1982, there's a surprising amount of excitement here. While I wouldn't put it up against something like Rad Racer, I will say I didn't expect it to keep pulling me back in for another run. Frenzy seems kinda interesting. I didn't do any research on this one, but either it's Berserk or a sequel to that. You wanna know how I know that? It's because Evil Otto is back and badder than before. This game did teach me an important lesson though. Robots are jerks. You move from room to room blasting robots while trying not to get blasted yourself. It seems like a simple concept. In this version of the game there are destructible walls and you can reflect shots off them, which results in a lot of chaos. The longer I played, the more I wanted to go further. And that's a great thing. You gotta love it. Oh man, Burgertime. I'm not sure that I like this one. I mean, first of all, on paper it sounds ridiculous. You're making hamburgers while being chased by food. That sounds like something I would have made up as a kid after getting no sleep and having a bad dream. But I guess somehow it works, because this one gets a lot of love around the internet. I just don't see it. I don't like how it plays, even though I do understand the concept. I will say that the manual is cool. Ladybug might be the biggest surprise of the entire video. At first I thought I was going to be playing another Pac-Man clone, and then I realized that it has its own ideas. A changing maze while you're moving around sounds like a small thing, but it completely changes how you play the game. The more I play it, the more I appreciated how clever it is. I would definitely play it again, but dear God, do not touch the skulls. Time Pilot. Wow, this one is actually made by Konami, which was one of my favorite companies back in the day. Even nowadays though, this game feels well paced, and that's the thing that really stood out for me. A lot of these early games could feel really sluggish. Time Pilot doesn't though. It also isn't insanely fast like Defender. But you're constantly moving, constantly shooting, and constantly trying not to get surrounded. This game is very addictive once you figure out how to play it. The game itself is pretty open and every stage has a boss. I sat down expecting to play a few rounds for footage, and then I looked at the clock, and you know how that goes. Donkey Kong was the most controversial pick on the original 2600 video. I came into it with my snobby NES kid attitude, and while some agreed with me, some disliked my comments and definitely made themselves heard. I will say though that this is more like how I like my Donkey Kong. Let's be honest, this is probably the reason a lot of people bought a Colecovision. As an NES kid, it was impossible not to compare either version to the Nintendo version though. But what surprised me was how impressive this looked for 1982 versus the NES version. It was obviously miles ahead of the 2600, and this one has music. What an amazing feature. The gameplay, well, it's Donkey Kong, you all know what it is. And Donkey Kong is one of those games that it's almost impossible to ruin, because the core design is so strong. It's a classic for a reason, and this time it looks good. What more can I ask for? Mario and Donkey Kong though, they do look very odd in the manual. Take a look at this. Zaxxon is another classic by Sega. If you wanted to impress your friends in 1982, I imagine that this was the game. The isometric perspective alone is enough to make people stop and look. Even today it still stands out. It's quite impressive. It looks better than some NES games, to be honest with you. It took me a while to adjust to judging height properly in this one. Once it clicked though, I started to have a lot more fun with it. This feels like one of those games that was trying to push technology forward and innovate. This game also has bosses in it. I would say overall it's a pretty awesome game. My only complaint is that it's hard to figure out where to aim when there is no background. Miner 2049er is a game that feels a lot different from the arcade games on the system. It's slower, more deliberate, and honestly, it feels surprisingly modern. I think that it's a pretty cool game. I couldn't figure out what to do at first, but eventually got the hang of it. I like all the gameplay mechanics like elevators, slides, and lifts, and the game feels really smooth actually. All the animations work really well and it's kind of amazing. This is the kind of game that made me stop and think about how creative developers already were this early in gaming history. There are objectives to complete in this one, and it seems pretty advanced for the time. It probably blew some kids' minds back then. It definitely blew mine. Out of everything I played for this video, Mr. Do is the one that I kept coming back to. It's weird though, because I'm sure I played this sometime in life, as it seems very familiar. Was it on MS-DOS? The graphics and sound were great and the game itself was very fun to play. It's also super charming. I would tell myself I was just getting a little more footage. Then 20 minutes disappeared. Then an hour passed by. That's usually how I know a game still works. I don't even have any nostalgia for this one, I think. I didn't grow up with it, and no one recommended it to me. I just sat down, played it, and had fun. And honestly, that's probably the biggest compliment that I could give it. I will also say that dropping apples on enemies is just hilarious. Going into this video, I expected the Colecovision to be a small step above the 2600. What I found was a much bigger leap than I expected. The Atari won me over because of the great gameplay despite its limitations, and the Colecovision won me over because it's like the developers were starting to figure out how to bring the arcade home, and it really showed what they could do with better technology. As an NES kid, it's easy to look back and assume that everything before Nintendo was primitive. But after spending time with these games, I don't think that's fair at all, especially when you consider the release dates for these consoles. Some of these games are still genuinely fun and worth replaying today, so I recommend you check them out. Now let me know in the comments, did you grow up with ColecoVision? And what games would you have added to this list? As for me, I think my ColecoVision is getting blurry, because I've been staring at Mr. Do for way too long. And that's a wrap. It is time to reboot. I will see you on the other side.